The potential of announcement for a large automaker or tech company to partner with Tesla's full self-driving is growing every day. With the news that Tesla is preparing to launch FSD in China, now that it's gained tentative government approval, along with recent massive leaps in Tesla's full self-driving technology, and comments directly from China's Baidu about their desire to partner with Tesla, today let's learn more about what it would actually take for an automaker to license Tesla's self-driving technology. This won't be as simple as attaching 8 cameras and they're good to go. No, this will require at least 3 years of integration of hardware, software, and data. We'll review all the comments Tesla has said about this. We've got Jeff Lutz here with us today, and he's previously a chief supply chain officer managing factories and global partnerships. He's the perfect person for us to ask this question because he's actually done partnerships. He knows what it takes for the other side, what work they need to do, and what it takes for, in this case, Tesla, what they would need to do. Welcome, Jeff. Appreciate you joining me.
Yep, great to be with you, Albert.
So this is a topic that people think is coming soon. I know you've been saying this since December that there will be a partnership for FSD. The question is, what will it actually take? Let's go through every single nuance of what the other party needs to do, what Tesla needs to do. So the reason why this is becoming quite hot and heavy now is because we actually heard the general manager of Baidu, who's in charge of their autonomous vehicle division. Many people consider Baidu to be the leader, actually even ahead of Waymo, because he said that they'd be willing to collaborate with Tesla on robotaxi. So this general manager said in an interview that Baidu is considering potential collaboration opportunities with Tesla for Tesla's upcoming robotaxi service. This is going to be based on the specific application models. I don't know what that means. I think the technology and the timing of their entry into the China market. This is what a Baidu looks like today. They have 500 of them in many cities in China, and they're going to grow to 1,000 of them next year. They use the LiDAR system still, and that's why I wanted to ask you, what would it actually take to do that? And after that, we'll listen to Elon talk about what he thinks the partnership will take. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things come to mind here. First off, both in China and in India, the miles or kilometers per incident are much greater than in the US. So there's an issue even with reporting sometimes, I would say. But if you've ever worked in China or lived in China, and then you've lived in the US or Canada or other maybe Western European countries, you'll see that there's a dramatic difference in the way that cars are driven, and there's a lot of accidents. So I can see China saying, like, this is a big opportunity for us. If we know computers are going to be better drivers than humans, and we can make this a much better place for our people if we can reduce the incident rate, reduce the rate of accidents. And these companies are entrepreneurial and they want to make money off of robotaxi services. So just a couple of things that come to mind in terms of doing this. One is they're looking at Tesla because the unit economics are a magnet. And in China, if you think Tesla is sensitive to cost and best part is no part, best process is no process, simplification, that thing that Elon continues to just drive down into that culture of Tesla, it's that times, many times more in China. And it comes from a generation of them being contract manufacturers to many Western European and US companies, where they're kind of in the middle between you and the consumer, and they're acting as a manufacturer. And so they've got much lower margins doing that. And then they've got to scrape in drive simplification or drive reduction of labor, for costs. And a new thing that they're working that I think is now for this generation in China is really driving the automation side. For the last couple of decades, they could really focus on the fact that labor was so much cheaper, basically, under $3 an hour for labor in most parts of China. And now, that advantage is slowly declining, and other Southeast Asian countries are ramping up in terms of their technical capability, like Vietnam and Thailand and so forth. So China really has to move more towards the robotics side. So think of robotics in the factory, but also think of robotics in terms of driving in vehicles. So to me, we're at a logical point, and I think them partnering with Tesla, I go back to prior conversations where I said Tesla is looked upon as an innovation leader. So Tesla, I think, is going to have an outsized, easier time, not easier, but they've earned it in China in terms of their stay in China. And I think local companies want to work with Tesla. The unit economics are a magnet. Everything comes down to lowest cost, and Tesla's a leader. And this solution that Tesla is working on is probably the most scalable as well.
Okay. And then you just told me before the show that this is Baidu, a tech company. They've already kind of announced that they're willing to partner, but you're looking for an automaker just based on the words that Elon is saying. Let's listen to Elon, what he said at the earnings call. It's about a 2-minute clip, and then we'll give us an explanation of what he said.
Tesla will be operating the fleet. So you can think of like how Tesla, think of Tesla like, I don't know, some combination of Airbnb and Uber, meaning that, there'll be some number of cars that Tesla owns itself and operates in the fleet. There'll be some number of cars, and then there'll be a bunch of cars where they're owned by the end user, but that end user can add or subtract their car to the fleet whenever they want. And they can decide if they want to only let the car be used by friends and family, or only by 5-star users, or by anyone. And at any time, they could have the car come back to them and be exclusively theirs, like an Airbnb. You could rent out your guest room or not anytime you want. As our fleet grows, we have 7 million cars, 9 million cars, eventually tens of millions of cars worldwide. With a constant feedback loop, every time something goes wrong, that gets added to the training data, and you get this training flywheel happening. In the same way that Google search has the sort of flywheel, it's very difficult to compete with Google because people are constantly doing searches and clicking, and Google's getting that feedback loop. It's the same with Tesla, but at a scale that is maybe difficult to comprehend, but ultimately be tens of millions. I think there's also some potential here for an AWS element down the road, where if we've got very powerful inference, because we've got a hardware 3 in the cars, but now all cars are being made with hardware 4. Hardware 5 is pretty much designed and should be in cars hopefully towards the end of next year. And there's a potential to run, when the car is not moving, to actually run distributed inference. So kind of like AWS, but distributed inference. Like, it takes a lot of computers to train an AI model, but many orders of magnitude less compute to run it. So if you can imagine a future perhaps where there's a fleet of 100 million Teslas, and on average they've got like maybe a kilowatt of inference compute, that's 100 gigawatts of inference compute distributed all around the world.
Okay, so before I ask you questions about the actual partnerships and what they said about that, what's your comment about what he described, how this robotaxi is going to happen, and that the more cars out there, it's going to be hard to compete with them. It's a flywheel. And then, so therefore, partners would want to join this before, if they try to do it themselves, they can't get into the largest data set possible.
Yeah, this has been years in the making, and I'm flabbergasted on X that there are still people that think that there's something else out there like this. They see a 20-second clip on YouTube of a quote unquote robotaxi pulling to pick somebody up and drive away in China. They think that everybody already has this. But what you heard Elon describe was a flywheel of, as is basically if anybody's using this tool or this operation and something goes wrong, that data is uploaded and then that's improved and that problem doesn't happen again. And when you don't have an AI-driven robotaxi solution, as what Tesla is developing and putting out in the marketplace, starting as FSD and then eventually as a robotaxi, you won't have that rate of improvement. You won't have that improvement at all. And what you have out there right now is you have cars with a bunch of sensors, a bunch of compute inside, and you have them being teleoperated remotely. I mean, these are facts. You can look them up. And I get surprised by people that call themselves analysts that can't look at basic facts like this and then realize that there's no time to break even on these systems. Or if they are, they're many years in advance and they're going to be nowhere near the gross margin potentials of a Tesla robotaxi service. Now, there's inherent risk of Tesla, launching this and getting it up to the level of performance, that it needs to be at. But that risk has been declining, and with the scale of compute coming up with Tesla, it looks like it's going to be declining, correlated to the rate of compute coming up. So we'll see how 12.4 and how 12.5 looks. But it boggles my mind that there are people out there that believe that what they see out there today from a Cruise or some other company or Baidu today, which is kind of locally constrained, is something that will scale at the levels of what Tesla is doing. Tesla started and Elon started this plan out. Like I've said before, everything that they undertake has a plan for massive scale, or they don't do it. Because if they can't get the massive scale, they can't get the cost advantage. And it goes back to the mission of Tesla trying to, basically drive sustainable transport. And you can't do that without scale. So you need the best autonomy solution with scale. You need the best driving solution and the best cost structure to get that scale. So the flywheel was a very interesting comment to me. People talk about, well, I'm not going to release my car to a fleet to have used, but you probably release it to your family. So now if you look in an average family of maybe 2 adults and 1 or 2 children, and maybe they have 2 or 3 cars, like what's the utilization rate on those 2 or 3 cars? And could those 2 or 3 cars become 1 or 2, where you improve the utilization by having it function like this? So I think it honestly changes the whole landscape of what the driving experience is. And then this whole comment about distributed inference and having an AWS-like service, it's a concept. Maybe it's far into the future. Maybe it's a couple of years out, but it's not impossible. And Tesla started all of this with driving scale on the auto hardware side. They drove scale, they drove gross margins, and they started generating all of this cash. And then they're using this cash to maybe do a couple other models, but really honestly drive their compute and drive this whole AI infrastructure piece up. And then they put all these $1,000 inference computers in every Tesla vehicle. So now you heard Elon saying we're going to get to 7 million, eventually 9 to 10 million, and so forth. And they'll have a level of scale there as well. That again, that's going to be unmatched, and that's why you maybe heard Jensen later talking about how Tesla is just far ahead on this. So it's staggering when you think about it. The risk has been high for a number of years, and the risk is steadily reducing. We can judge for ourselves as we see 12.4 maybe rolling out over the next couple of weeks. And then we're probably within 70 days of seeing the robotaxi unveil. You saw screenshots. You see them doing the core framework of all this. So you see it in the Tesla app. They have their own app, and you could see them adding this functionality over time. So it's pretty exciting to me to see what they're building towards. You can tell that there's planning and forethought, but everything came back to I go back to these 2 axioms around scale and simplification, and everything is really pointing back to this. The Chinese, in terms of a partnership, Tesla is attractive from an innovation perspective, but they're attractive from a cost perspective. They're not used to being one-upped in cost, and meaning lower in cost. They're not used to that at all. Li Auto one of their founders, and I know one of the founders. He's one of my coworkers at Lenovo. He's recently left, but one of the other founders of Li Auto said, "Hey, look, we tore down the Tesla autopilot system, and we look at ours, and ours is $5,000 or $6,000, and theirs is probably south of $1,500. So they're not used to that. So I think China is going to be very open to partnering with Tesla, and again, the cost advantage is not only going to come from the hardware side; it's going to come from the way the whole system is designed. They're going to get cost advantages from partnering with Tesla. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to come in a couple of different forms.
Okay. So let's talk about what it would actually take to partner with another car company. And there is this competing information here, and I'm kind of confused of what to believe, because both of them actually came directly from Tesla themselves, whether or not this is simple or this is very difficult, and what the integration is with the hardware. So, you've got Elon saying we will license the tech to other car companies. Okay, great. He calls it tech. Some people were, taking that apart. What does he mean by tech? But in the earnings call, this is what they said. We're in conversations with one major automaker regarding licensing FSD. He later noted that it's becoming more and more evident that a vision-based approach is the right path to autonomy. Since Tesla's vision-based approach does not require specialized equipment, adopting FSD should not be a very complicated matter. Okay, that's the part, right? Of course, we're not talking about LiDAR. I get that part, but it's still more than just cameras. So this is what they actually said. Said it really just becomes a case of having them use the same cameras and inference computer and licensing our software. Once it becomes obvious that if you don't have this in your car, nobody wants your car. It's a smart car that people don't understand. All cars will need to be smart cars, or you will not sell. Nobody would buy it. Once that becomes obvious, I think licensing becomes not optional. So he referred to as cameras, inference computer, and software. In the conversations we've had with some of these OEMs, I just want to point out that they take a lot of time in their product lifecycle. They're talking about years before they will put it in their product. We might have a licensing deal earlier than that, but it takes a while. And this is the CFO, Vaibhav Taneja, said. And he said, like, if you have an eager partner, so if you have an eager partner that is going to, pull out all the stops, partner with you, it still will take 3 years, is one thing they've said. Is it as hard to install the hardware, or is it really just the fact that they are slow in their product life cycles?
Yeah, they're the product life cycles. So give me an idea, to make an automobile, it's a couple of years, like in I would say Western Europe and in the US. In China, they're probably doing it in south of 2 years. In some cases, depending on the complexity of the model, maybe even less if you're just doing a refresh versus a full ground up new model. But let's unpack this. So when you're doing a partnership, if you're Tesla, what you want to do is you want to figure out how to lock in users and drive scale. Again, everything comes back to scale. And then on the simplification side, you don't want a lot of like messy and sticky terms. You want it to turn into a flywheel where they add users, and maybe these licensing partners, they have a way to make money. Of course, they want to offer if it's a Ford, for example, Ford wants to make some money off of this as well. So how do you do that? Well, first off, you look at the competition out there, and right now it's Tesla, and it's there's a couple of other companies that are at least working on the software, and there's then you have NVIDIA that's working on both the software and the hardware. But if you're working with NVIDIA and you have to pay NVIDIA anywhere from 40 to 75% gross margins for the chip and access to that and the software, well, maybe if you're Tesla, you offer that at 30% gross margins. So there's things that Tesla can do. You have to look at your cost advantage, and you have to look at your innovation lead. And if you have a massive innovation lead, you can basically nearly charge what you want. Think of this as like the time when when flip phones and non-smartphones were converting, to smartphones. when we were doing that, we had a portfolio of 20 or 30 different non-smartphone products, and we literally end of life them, inside of a year, and said, we're going to make this dramatic knife switch and we're going to cut over to smart because this is what people want. And it's the same thing here. I think once cars start being sold that have this capability where you can get in, just tell it where you want to go and it goes, and it also has this robotaxi capability, why are people going to want to buy conventional cars? So then the race is going to be on to either have your own solution ready or to partner with Tesla. So when these other OEMs are looking out there and they see Cruise or they see Waymo or they see Baidu or they see these other solutions, they see some mixture of what's going on. They see LiDAR, sensors, expensive vehicles. And you got Tesla. You have the most inexpensive inference vehicle side, option that's out there. And so Tesla designed that chip. They designed the software that runs on it. They designed the software that runs in the car. They designed all the hardware interfaces inside of the vehicle to go from the cameras to the inference computer to controlling the car. And they understand that whole network and all that latency. And that's all designed by Tesla and its lowest cost. So if you look at every single link in the chain to have your car go from being dumb to smart and driving, Tesla has an underlying cost advantage. They've got the scale that they've built up on their own fleet. So you're going to look to an NVIDIA, you're going to look to all these other companies, and NVIDIA is out there telling you that Tesla is in the lead right now. So now that presents an interesting fork in the road. NVIDIA themselves are out there saying that, well, the leaders in self-driving cars is Tesla. So if you want to get the market, you're looking at, and you'd say you're a Ford, and you're like, well, this is what I'm doing on my own with my own automation team, and it's got a path to this year and this level of functionality. Well, then I go look to NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is saying that Tesla is the leader. Well, then I go look at Tesla, and Tesla's, my guess is they're working on a licensing package for partners to browse through. And basically, it can come in many different forms. But what I see is Tesla licensing the hardware in the vehicle and access to it. So meaning like Tesla would go tell their supply chain to produce that hardware and kit it and sell it to OEM A, B, or C. So that's one point. Tesla can make money off of that. You have the engineering services to get FSD working in your vehicle. You have hardware, you have software, and then you have the network infrastructure side to be able to host those vehicles. Tesla can sell that both as an ongoing service and maintenance, but they can also sell the upfront engineering work to get it integrated into the partner vehicle. And then you've got the full self-driving software itself, its upgrades, its improvements, its new features, and then they can sell that as an upfront cost and as a licensing fee, or one or the other. I would assume at a minimum a licensing fee. So I just named off 3 different areas, including software, hardware, and then ongoing services and support as what Tesla can sell. And that business is beautiful from a gross margin perspective. It scales. On the Tesla side, you're going to want to take some of your technical resources. You're going to want to add resources to it, and you're going to want to have a partnership team that has the ability to go sell in, close the deal, someone to product manage any features back and forth. You want to really minimize any feature requests, honestly. And then you'd have an engineering entity that would help do the integration work with the OEM partner. And you'd have a kind of a supply planning team to work with, getting them material, getting them parts for prototypes, getting them parts for mass production, and you're essentially selling that, back into them, or they may automate that and get them direct access. So those are the elements of like Tesla building up a licensing effort. Now the 3 years part, it may take, I would say with a Chinese vendor, it would probably be quicker, probably be under 2 years. It could be under 2 years. But the clock in terms of dollars coming into Tesla could be very soon. Like the engineering. So if I'm Tesla, I want to charge for they're called non-recurring engineering funds, or NRE. It's what's used in these deals. I would want to charge an NRE to partners so I can enable their vehicles to be full self-driving. It's one and done type work, and you help them, and when it's done, and you're getting paid. Now, if I'm Tesla, instead of having to do these painful OpEx reductions of walking my own people out the door, the people I spent money on to recruit, the people who I think are some of the best people in the world. Remember, millions of people apply to Tesla, only a very few percentage get in. Why would I want to walk them out the door versus me getting, this non-recurring engineering funds up front that I could actually fund my engineering efforts and get, come in the doors and support my OpEx effort. So I know a lot of people talk about just give them FSD, just sell them a license, but give them the hardware, give them this, give them engineering services. Here's my advice. As long as Tesla has a significant lead in performance, a significant lead in cost structure, they don't have to give anything away. They should be charging for everything. And I'm not saying charge an inappropriate or excessive amount. I'm saying if you render services, whether it's hardware, whether it's engineering services, or whether it's network infrastructure support, or whether it's ongoing software upgrades, charge for them, because you're the only game in town, and you can also be very efficient in terms of what you charge them. So I think that's what a partnership can look like. It'll come in the form of hardware. It'll come in the form of software. There'll be some supply chain services. There'll be some support services on the network infrastructure side. There'll be engineering services to get it integrated into the vehicle. So there's anywhere from 3 to 5 different nodes for these companies to partner on and with. And I think Tesla will be a very efficient and cost-effective partner. And certainly they've designed the system to a point where their cost structure is so much lower, and they're showing that the endpoint is so near that a lot of these companies, I think this is going to be a little bit like the supercharger announcement, where you're going to get one major player maybe in every region, and then a bunch of people it just tips over and says, they look at what they have and they look at what's being offered, and they say, well, why wouldn't I do this? I can make money, charge my consumers for this, and this is the best solution out there. So I think this is going to be a very big deal for Tesla, and I think it's being very undercalled by many analysts out there.
Thank you so much, Jeff. This is exactly what I was looking for. Your answer was thorough, probably the most thorough explanation of the, what the hardware, software, how all of that would come in, what the teams that the partner would need to set together, how they would work together, and even gave your comments about how Tesla should charge for it, despite Elon saying he might consider at cost or even free.
Well, they can do what they want. I'm not here to tell Tesla what to do. I'm just saying they don't have to.
They don't have to. Thank you for that. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Jeff, though, is in a past Cyberbulls show that Alexandra and I were talking, you were there as well. She was talking about that there's this option, and I just can't understand it. This option that an automaker would license the technology from Tesla, but only would do it for FSD. Like they would charge their customers for this monthly fee or the ability to have full self-driving, and not necessarily do it for ride hailing and robotaxi. And for me, it's like, I'm scratching my head going, why would they go through all that trouble and not go for the big bucks, which is ride hailing? What's your thinking of how this might go?
I don't know how many ride-hailing networks you need. But every OEM that sells a car today and plans to sell a car 5 years from now should have an autonomous solution that meets or exceeds the requirements of its consumers. And if Tesla has something that could be lower cost, remember, it's 2024, and these companies are spending R&D, billions of dollars of R&D right now to try to develop these things. They could choose to deprecate it right now, save themselves a ton of money, and then when they're ready to ship in maybe 2026 or 2027, have a much better solution that would have been at a lower cost than if they did it themselves, and it allows them to take their OpEx down now. So that's why I could see them doing it. I don't know how many robotaxi companies we need. And remember, when you become a robotaxi operator, this is different than selling cars to people. Because when you sell cars to individual end consumers, you sell them the car, you sell them a service plan, and and that's kind of the end of your relationship with them. When you're operating a robotaxi fleet, you're taking on that capital risk yourself, and then you've got to maintain the fleet, and then you've got to, so it's just different business. The car will have the capability to drive itself for end consumers or be added to a robotaxi fleet. So I can see companies having either or. But I can't see everybody wanting to be a robotaxi operator. I don't know why everybody would just want to be a robotaxi. But I mean, everybody who owns a car that wants the ability for it to drive itself when they don't want to drive and have all those active safety features, I could see everybody wanting that.
Yeah, I did not expect that Ford would actually create their own robotaxi network. But if they license the technology from Tesla, then their car should be robotaxi ready, ride-hail ready, and then they should ask for a cut. That's why they're doing this, to be included in Tesla's free ride-hailing network, but not to just say one and done, sell the car, it's, autonomous ready, and that's enough. Doesn't seem likely to me. But
yeah, I think there'll be different services they sell too. If you're Tesla and you're going to host a robotaxi fleet on your network infrastructure, I'm assuming there could be monitoring features. There could be both optically as well as performance of the vehicles, maintenance cycles. I think there's a number of things that they could sell to end fleet operators to help them manage their fleet. So I think they're different models. There's one that's kind of an end consumer model, one-off use, and then there's a more of a business model. So we'll see. I think it can go a number of directions.
All right, let's listen into Jensen Huang. We have to do this because NVIDIA themselves has their own autonomous platform that they sell to quite a number of partners, automaker partners. But he himself has said Tesla is far ahead in self-driving cars. Every single car someday will have to have autonomous capability. And this guy driving EV said, who's on the verge of solving autonomy? Tesla. Who will license their FSD tech to everyone else? Tesla. Who's NVIDIA's partner? Tesla. This sure sounds like that's what he's kind of hinting at.
Tesla is far ahead in self-driving cars. But every single car someday will have to have autonomous capability. It's safer, it's more convenient, it's more fun to drive.
Okay, so I mean, he could just have been saying that, Tesla's ahead, but we also have it, and every car will need this. What was your interpretation? What he said?
What came to mind for me, Herbert, is swap out the word Apple and swap out the word self-driving car with smartphone, and then swap out NVIDIA with Android, and you pretty much have the answer, which is Tesla is far ahead. And by the way, we're powering Tesla. We're powering the network infrastructure for Tesla. That's why they brought it up on the earnings call a couple of times, because here's why. They're smart. They see that Tesla is converging on the goal. They see that they're now, this is now about a ramp up of compute. This is not about acquiring just mass miles and where are all the interventions at. It's more of like, how do I get, now Tesla's at a new phase or a new stage where they actually need miles that have interventions in them, or it's not valuable anymore. It's not as valuable to them. And they're at a whole new phase. NVIDIA knows it. NVIDIA knows that if it's not 8.8, if it's 9.8, or if it's 10.8, that Tesla is going to have some amazing functionality rolling out this year. And they want to make sure that everybody knows that this is powered by NVIDIA from a network infrastructure side. Now, there's a bunch that goes above and beyond that. Tesla designed the network infrastructure that compute goes in. They wrote the software. That is a Tesla hosted, training system. That's not just off the shelf. Anybody can buy it the way Tesla did it. So there's a lot to be said there. And I think, Jensen, his statement was probably the thing that sent Tesla Q the most quiet I've ever seen in years. Because you have who everybody says is the godfather of AI, and the leaders on AI saying that, hey, we have all these partners. We may have 80 partners right now, but Tesla's number one and far ahead in self-driving. So there's nothing that to me silenced the critics more than that.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. I got what I wanted from you today. Thank you for that. You answered the questions very thoroughly. This is the first time I think that somebody actually broke it down in exactly what would need to happen. You've got the experience with, large global partnerships with two very large companies trying to work together, licensing one each other's technologies. This is going to happen. You've been predicting it, and it's going to happen sooner than we realized. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you. Follow him on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.